Backpacking in the 90s was an act of faith. You set off with optimism and, if you were lucky, a map that wasn't already falling apart. You packed a bag, bought a ticket, and hoped your shoes would last longer than your budget. Then you stepped into a world you only knew from postcards, usually faded, and probably a bit misleading. No blogs, no influencer, feeds, just you, your backpack, and the hope you'd find a payphone that worked. It was all raw curiosity. And maybe a little bit of stubbornness. The world felt vast and mysterious, like a giant puzzle with half the pieces missing. And we chased the unknown, sometimes on purpose, sometimes because we got lost. Decisions were made on a whim, or based on a rumor from someone who definitely knew a shortcut. Maybe it was a friend's tip, or a magazine photo that looked nothing like reality. The lack of information was the point. It made every step an adventure, and every wrong turn a story. You never quite knew what was around the corner. Sometimes it was a temple, sometimes it was a goat. We were explorers, or at least we like to think so, charting our own course with confidence that lasted until the next missed bus. Through a world that still held secrets and didn't care if you found them. The journey was about discovering things for yourself, not just ticking off a list. Not confirming what others had shown you, but finding your own version, even if it was closed for renovations. It was just you, your backpack, and optimism. Sometimes misplaced, but always there. You learned to trust your instincts, or at least pretend you did. And you got comfortable with uncertainty, mainly because you had no choice. Every day brought new challenges and small victories, like finding the right bus, or at least a bus going somewhere. Finding a bus, ordering a meal you couldn't pronounce, securing a room that hopefully had a door. These moments built self-reliance and a healthy respect for travel insurance. More valuable than any souvenir, even if you did lose half of them on the way home. Today, the world is mapped and reviewed, every corner photographed and rated. But back then, we embraced the unknown, and sometimes the unknown embraced us right back. We arrived in new cities, with only scribbled notes and a vague sense of direction. And hope. Always hope. That leap into the void was the real adventure. That's where the magic happened usually, after you'd run out of plans. It was a time when the world felt big, wild, and beautifully uncharted, and honestly, we wouldn't have had it any other way. In a world without Wi-Fi, our most treasured possession was a battered guidebook. For many, it was Lonely Planet, a Bible, a map, a lifeline. And if you were desperate, a decent pillow. Hours were spent in bookstores, dreaming and planning. The guidebook was the first real step of any journey. It held keys to the kingdom maps, guest houses, tips on avoiding scams. The advice felt personal, like a friend's note. We trusted these books, following their trails and recommendations. The On a Shoestring series was legendary for those with more time than money. The book became part of the trip, filled with notes and memories. Its information was never exhaustive. The world moved faster than print. The guidebook was a starting point, not a script. If you wanted certainty, you stayed home. You had to talk to people, ask questions, and fill in the gaps yourself. The best parts were tips from other travelers, dispatches from the road. These created a sense of camaraderie, a global tribe connected by shared adventure. That book was more than facts. It was a symbol of community. Planning a trip meant spreading a paper map across the floor. The maps were sketches, full of gaps your own feet had to fill. These gaps forced you to engage with the world, not just follow a blue dot. You navigated by landmarks, a temple, a river, a clock tower. And if you got lost, well, at least you had a good excuse. No one really knew where anything was. Getting lost was normal, often leading to the best discoveries. Guidebooks gave vague directions down a small lane near the clock tower. Finding your way was a mini adventure, sometimes easy, sometimes an hour of wandering. This process connected you to a place and its people. Lack of detail created a shared purpose among travelers. You'd compare notes, update maps, and share discoveries. A hand-annotated map was gold, a living document built by collective experience. The gaps on the map were where the real adventure lived. That's where stories began. Arriving in a new place was pure reality, no filters, just the world as it was. No Uber, no hotel confirmation, just the unknown waiting outside the station doors. You had your backpack and your wits, and that was enough. The first challenge: find a place to sleep, preferably with a roof. Guidebooks listed a handful of guest houses, but the real journey began when you stepped into the street. Getting there meant negotiating with drivers, sometimes in languages you barely spoke, and wandering unfamiliar streets, following instinct more than directions. You'd check rooms, haggle over prices, and hope the mattress wasn't made of concrete. If it felt right, you dropped your bag and let out a breath you didn't know you were holding. This ritual was exhausting, but it made you realize just how capable you could be. You were self-sufficient, even if your sense of direction was questionable. Without the internet, every plan was a conversation. Finding what to do next meant talking to people, not scrolling through reviews. Guest house owners, fellow travelers, and notice boards were your sources of wisdom. Information was currency, traded over coffee or a shared meal, exchanged through conversation, not an app. This fostered a strong sense of community. Strangers became friends, if only for a night. We relied on each other, and plans were always flexible. Sometimes the only plan was to have no plan at all. Spontaneity ruled, and the best stories started with, "I wasn't expecting that." You might stay longer for new friends, or for a festival you just heard about that morning. The itinerary was written in pencil and sometimes erased altogether. No non-refundable bookings, just a sense of possibility. Your journey changed with every conversation, every new face. The joy was in the unexpected, in letting go of control. You let the journey unfold, one discovery at a time. Sometimes you even found the place you were looking for. This way of travel taught flexibility and resourcefulness skills that last longer than souvenirs. The best moments were never planned, they just happened, and that was the magic. Photography in the 90s was an exercise in patience and hope. You carried a film camera, 24 shots per roll, each one precious. Every photo was a decision, not a reflex. You wouldn't see the results for weeks, sometimes longer. Opening that packet of prints was a mix of anticipation and surprise. Good photos were trophies. The bad ones, well, let's just say my thumb had a more exciting travel life than I did. Each mistake was a lesson, not a delete button. You spent more time looking at the world than through a lens. Being disconnected was normal. No smartphones, no instant updates, just the moment you were in. Communication was rare, through aerograms or expensive calls home. This detachment was liberating, forcing you to be present. You immersed yourself in the moment and the people around you. Technology has made travel easier, but something was lost. The joy of discovery, self-reliance, and deep connections. We gained convenience, but lost a bit of adventure. The greatest gift was learning the art of being lost and, in the process, finding yourself